Hey guys, more gravy please here, and I saw the new trailer for Ghostbusters dropped, and I wanted to give it a thorough analysis and breakdown right here. So let's get right into it. The trailer starts with a text opener that states 30 years ago, 4 scientists saved the world. Gonna have a slight nitpick here, there was only 3 scientists, and Winston joined up later, but he looked at it as a job, and he wasn't really a scientist. But he was still awesome, but it wasn't 4. I know Sony had to abbreviate this somehow, like I guess it wasn't cool enough to say 4 guys saved the world, but whatever. So they're positioning it now like a soft reboot, which I thought before this was just going to be a complete reboot where they were going to ignore the original movie and just have these new characters as the Ghostbusters, like this was the first time this happened. But now they're saying, no, this is not the first time this happened. This is now 30 years later and new guys are doing it. So we have a retelling of it without committing to the full reboot, and whatever, it is what it is. So my worry is that a text opener just stating that the original Ghostbusters existed isn't going to be enough for older fans, to give that the nod. There needs to be that old Spock moment, where Leonard Nimoy shows up in the Abrams Star Trek films and it kind of lends credence that he's passing the torch on to these new guys. These new guys are supposed to be the original characters. So even though this is not that, these are just totally new characters, you kind of need that passing of the torch. Now to me, the character that would have done that the best was Harold Ramis's character of Dr. Egon Spengler. As we know, Harold Ramis passed away a couple years ago. It's very sad. And I think he would have been the best person to do this. He was so attached to the property, co-wrote both movies, he wrote the game, so I think he would have been the best person to do that. Bill Murray has constantly distanced himself from Ghostbusters, so I don't even know if he's going to show up in the movie. I hope so, right? I hope somebody shows up. Like Dan Aykroyd tweeted about a year ago that he had filmed his scenes for the movie, so that was quite obvious. Kind of gave that away if he was telling the truth that he was in the movie. And Ernie Hudson said he wanted to be in it, so they are the most likely to reprise their roles in the movie. We get the opening shots in New York City, and they show us the firehouse from the original movies that's supposed to be the headquarters of the Ghostbusters. Now, in the shot, it's the actual working FDNY firehouse, which is really, really odd, because if this is supposed to be happening in the movie universe, why would the city convert the original Ghostbusters headquarters, which was an old abandoned firehouse that they converted to house ghosts and their lab equipment and all the odd things they used to catch and capture ghosts in the containment unit, why would they convert that back into a firehouse? That just seems really, really odd to me. Okay, then after that we get to see the main 3 new Ghostbusters, and they're facing off with the ghost of a woman in what looks to be a library. Now here is where I have some issues in that the movie is repeating, almost verbatim, the same establishing scenes from the original movie. Murray, Ramis, and Aykroyd's characters faced off with the ghost of a woman librarian in the original film before they decided to start up ghostbusting as a business. Now, the same thing is happening to these new protagonists, and they seem to go along the same path. They are also scientists who happen to be disciplined in the exact skills they need to recreate all of the gear necessary to detect and capture ghosts. While I think the gag was a little funny, what's odd is that we immediately get into sliming, where Kristen Wiig's character gets puked on by the ghost, and it looks like she lost on Double Dare. Sony is trying to tread a fine line to bring references from the original movie to appease older fans while making it modern, but I don't feel that this gag is genuine in any sense other than it's a reference to the first ghost encounter from the original film. After that, we get to a tech montage where we see some familiar looking elements being redone for this new movie. I don't know if I dig that giant laser grid ghost trap that looks like a giant bear trap, but it's a thing. Next, we get introduced to Leslie Jones's character of Patty as she plays a kind of pleasant MTA worker. Here, I think we're clearly and starkly reminded that this movie is science fiction because there's no such thing in reality in New York. She joins up with the other 3 sometime later in the movie and gets them the new Ecto-1. This repeats Winston joining the original crew later in the movie, except his intentions seem more genuine as he just wanted a paying job. Before we get to the shots of the new Ecto-1 driving around the city, I wanted to point out that the Ghostbusters' new headquarters is an old Chinese restaurant. And I thought that was very interesting because I think that's another reference callback to the original movie where their last meal, the last bit of money they had, and they hadn't had a job yet, was to buy all this Chinese food. So they were eating and they get their first call, their first job, so they were eating Chinese food. So I wonder if that's a reference to that, and this restaurant is that same restaurant, but I can't be sure of that until we actually see the movie. Anyways, I thought it was interesting, but an odd choice not to use the firehouse again, like I said in the beginning of this. I thought showing the firehouse as a real working firehouse was very odd, and now their new headquarters is a Chinese restaurant and not the firehouse. So back to the car, we see that it's a newer Hearst Cadillac that is used as a new Ecto-1 vehicle. We get to a very interesting shot, and I think the most important and probably revealing scene in the trailer is where you get to see the Ghostbusters in full gear in an Art Deco looking lobby with ghosts flying out of some void in the center of the room. Right after that, you get another scene that probably happens way later in the movie where they are walking down a very desolate Times Square that's full of ghosts, and it quickly transitions from the modern Times Square to a more 80s looking Times Square. All the billboards changed, the screens everywhere disappear for old billboards. You see movies like Taxi Driver on there, and you see another movie with Boris Karloff on another billboard. You see a liquor store, which don't exist in Times Square anymore. So I thought that shot was very interesting. I don't know where they're going with it, except more references to the original movie. If you listen to the narration that plays over this scene, you'll hear something very interesting.
Someone is creating a device that amplifies paranormal activity.
Now, this is just me speculating, but it could be that one of the original Ghostbusters is responsible for what's happening in this movie, and I think that would be very interesting, but probably won't play well to fans. I don't know if that's a good idea, and I get the subtle hint from what she said in that little narration that that could be the case. That's just my feeling. I could be wrong on that, but if I'm right, I don't know if that's a good direction to go in. If it turns out that one of them does turn into a villain and builds a ghost magnet for the city to relive Old Glory, I don't know if that will play well. We get to Chris Hemsworth's appearance, but his scene in the trailer is about 4 seconds long as he kicks open some doors in the most robotic fashion I've ever seen. I mean, from the dialogue, I guess we're supposed to assume that he's possibly possessed by a ghost? After that, we see Melissa McCarthy's character get possessed by a green ghost through her sink, and it has a creepy yet comical exorcist moment between her. She grabs Holtzman, pushes her out the window, and Patty saves them and literally slaps the ghost out of her. And I think this scene diminishes from the original because in the original movie, possession was a very serious thing. I mean, you have Rick Moranis' character of Louis Tully, Sigourney Weaver's character of Dana Barrett getting possessed, and this is a main plot point of the movie. And it had dire consequences at the end where they thought they weren't going to get them back. So to just devolve this now in this movie into a slap can cure a character of possession, that's kind of weak. So while I'm seeing they're trying to grab that Old Glory, they're trying to copy that feel, that vibe, I just don't think you can recapture lightning in a bottle like they did with that first movie. I mean, if the themes keep repeating, then we may see a return of an antagonist like Walter Peck from the original movie, and, you know, that character shuts down the Ghostbusters, they get humiliated, maybe end up in jail. It happened in the last two movies, and then the paranormal happenings in the city get absurdly worse to the point where they get exonerated, get all their gear back, and they go and they fight the ultimate evil from the film, whatever that may be. Here's hoping it's not one of the original characters that's causing all this, because I don't know how I feel about that. Alright, with that said, looking at this trailer as a whole, I recommend this movie at all. It looks like just lowbrow comedy with Ghostbusters slapped on it. I have no problem with the all-female cast, it's fine, but did this really need to be Ghostbusters? I don't think so. The jokes look a little lame, the characters look just like rehashes, just gender flip versions of the original characters, and they're repeating themes. I showed you they're repeating tons and tons of references to the original movie to be like, hey, remember this, hey, remember this, hey, remember that from the original movie to kind of justify the way they're doing this movie. I don't think that's enough. You cannot copy the heart and soul of the movie. And I think if you're going to have women fighting the paranormal, that could have been done with anything. Like, take a chance, Sony, do something new with it. But no, it had to be Ghostbusters. So this is what we got. I guess down the road, you know, when the movie comes out, I'll review it, I'll watch it, and I'll see how it is. And that's pretty much all I got on this. So glad you guys listened. If you guys like our stuff, check out our other shows like Toon Chat, Toy Quest, and I will catch you next time, guys. Peace.
Do you believe in UFOs, astral projections, mental telepathy, ESP, clairvoyance, spirit photography, telekinetic movement, full trance mediums, the Loch Ness Monster, and the theory of Atlantis?
If there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say.